Conversations with Elders, hosted by yours truly, Louis-Virie Blanche, welcoming you to Glastonbury Radio 432, where we will be TED Talking in tongues with the elders of all ages, all generations, all races, cultures, and creeds. All gender, religious, or political preferences will be honored and encouraged on Glastonbury Radio 432, Conversations with Elders, where it is our treasured pleasure to roll out the red carpet of golden liquid love light to you in honor of the Queendom Come, soul dancing free to life's heartbeat drum, in honor of mother, daughter, sister, lover, priestess, goddess, friend, sharing the blessings of love's perfect stranger, Deja Vu, welcoming you to Glastonbury Radio 432.
It's too cosmic, much too cosmic for me. Much too cosmic.
Aloha, hola, aho, hello. This is Louis-Virie Blanche, and you are with Conversations with Elders, where we roll out the red road carpet of golden liquid love light in honor of mother, daughter, sister, lover, warrior, priestess, goddess, and friend. And we have a divine feminine who carries the aspects of all that beauty with us. Every time she comes to be with us, it comes as a part of her presence and her essence. Our beloved Diane Starr is here, and we are continuing with Hallowed Be Thy Name. Which, if you haven't been with us before, Hallowed Be Thy Name is the title of the new book that Diane will be publishing soon. And the process of writing this book, this is the second time that you've done this, right?
Yes, I thought at first it was not willingly on my part, but turns out that's how Spirit wanted it. And I'm so
Yes.
excited because the biggest part I am 3 days away from doing, and then in another 3 to 4 weeks, I will have the first half done. Yeah, so Spirit's been in charge, and I've noticed these last ones as well, going through the energy as I write them. So I'm like, I gotta hurry up and get to the end of this because I keep going through each one of these.
Yes, you were saying you were going through an experience with each number, each card, because you've got 78, the 78 traditional tarot cards, right?
Correct.
And you have been, I want to repeat this because our beloved Barbara spoke of unconditional love, forgiveness, and gratitude. And I speak of everyone that comes on with me to share their trinity of inspiration. And that trinity of inspiration for our beloved Barbara being unconditional love, forgiveness, and gratitude just says it all. But then
Yes.
I asked you the last time we spoke about your trinity, and you spoke of divine inspiration, sacred duty, and joy.
Yes.
And I was really blown away that the fortitude of those three together, the divine inspiration, the sacred duty, and the joy, it was just a lovely way of putting your trinity of inspiration. Really, really nailed it.
Thank you. And I love how you put me on the spot, and I have so much joy every time I get to share. I'm like a giddy little kid. And when you asked me that, my first thought was, Mommy Barbara took the three best. Because I base everything off of that first. And so I put Mommy Barbara's as the golden standard for me, and then the rest just flowed. And that's just exactly how, when I focus on that first, I don't have to be in charge, and everything just flows the way it should be. And nothing is too big or too small that comes my way. And then I know I'm right where I need to be at, doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And it just feels like a miracle of every moment.
Well, in
And
the world of threes, you know who Tesla is or was.
yes.
And he spoke
Yes.
of the 3, the 6, and the 9. He was
Yep.
very big on those numbers. But it's interesting when you look at threes, like if to make a chord on an instrument, generally there's 3 notes.
Yes.
There's 3-part harmony. The triangle has a very potent place in our world of existence because triangulation can give us hexagons, pentagons, multifaceted shapes that serve a purpose because of their magnetic form resonance. And when you look at pyramids, you see this triangular shape having a very, very profound place in human existence.
And to jump in there with the 3, 6, and 9 in particular, that's a beautiful trinity. And starting just briefly to give you a little bit about each one, the 3 says, I learn to love myself. And with the 3 comes self-worth, self-love, self-care. Then we take it to the 6, a slightly different vibration. And the 6 says, well, now that I've learned to love myself, now I can share that love. And the 6 brings us relationships and maybe parenthood, maybe a romantic long-term commitment. And the 6 says, after I've learned to love myself, I love my children. I love my community. It's the mother. And that's what I consider as Mommy Barbara. Mother Teresa had that energy. And then when we take it to the 9, we get to the impersonal love, the humanitarian. And the humanitarian says, I belong to the universe. So the 3, 6, 9 represents the Holy Trinity of all the levels of love, starting from self, then to community, then to worldly and humanitarian. And that's just a beautiful, and that's how we get there. We get there by first loving ourselves. That's step 1.
Oh, yes. That's beautiful. I love how you have an understanding of these energies, these archetypes. And that was something, is it important for people to know that the tarot deck has 4 suits? You call them suits?
Yes. Yes, there are. There's the major arcana, and those are major immovable things that are in our lives that will last a long time. And then that ends with the Fool, and the Fool has the joy of the child. And then we start with the Wands, and the Wands are the people who take action and make things happen. And then we go into the Cups, and the Cups are about the people who feel. And we each have some of all of these aspects. So it's not just, and some of us specialize in certain ones. And then after we have the feeling with the Cups, then we go to the Swords. And the Swords, those are about mental clarity and clearing away the clouds and the fog and knowing our intellectual abilities and receiving that gift. And then we get to the Pentacles, and the Pentacles are about finances and making major changes and contributions with the money backing us and the power that we've realized from all the others and how that balances out, and then to be responsible with that money and power. So we don't want to just have money and power given to us and be irresponsible. So we go through all of those processes as well. Those are very important. I believe they're related to all of the elements as well.
Interesting. Well, that's a wonderful foundation for people to understand that because I've been subtitling, I've been using Hallowed Be Thy Name as the title for our conversations because it's such a beautiful title and will lead people to eventually be able to have your book in their personal lives and
yes,
have a relationship with it. But you know, the idea of what numbers represent and the representation of the tarot deck, I think is something the tarot readers that I'm familiar with at this time haven't talked much about the number relationship, the numerological relationship with tarot. And I think you're adding a real vista of possibilities for people to deepen their understandings, because a lot of people are familiar with the tarot cards, and then some people use a regular 52 card deck. I don't know how that happens when some people say, well, I'm just going to use the 52 card deck and I'll do a reading that way. But what are your feelings on these archetypes? Again, we're talking the arcana. Is it, what was the first?
The major arcana,
Arcana, right? The major
Yes.
arcana, followed
And
by
then
wands,
followed by wands, cups, swords, and
swords, and
pentacles.
pentacles.
Yes, yes. Um, we have had these around for such a long time. In fact, as a student of numerology and tarot, I would do all kinds of research, and we don't have a specific time that we can say, here's when tarot showed up. It's always been with us. And I would even go and check out some Manly Hall. He talks about that too. And we had in China some beautiful cards that were found that are very old. So we don't really know at this moment how far back this started. But these archetypes are very powerful. And we take these on and we like to have different lessons. We like to choose, what personality will we project ourselves through. And all of this in alignment with our spiritual path to further our spirit and to help others who come into our lives. And it just seems like when I do numerology and I see the connection of someone within their family and the challenges that they're sharing back and forth, it takes a powerful, brilliant mathematician, I call it source or God, to create these amazing connections and relationships that we have, and down to the exact number. It's a proof that no one's a mistake. It's all pure intention and with beautiful, positive, powerful reasons behind it. Uh, I don't believe in mistakes, and the more I see numerology and do numerology, it's not. And the connection I was able to make with the tarot, it happened through one of my favorite tarot books is Numerology and the Divine Triangle by Faith Javane and Dusty Bunker. And that was the first time I had seen in a numerology book, because like I said, I had read about 40 by then, but that was the first time I had seen the delineations go all the way through to 78. And even in that book, it said, reduce it to a single digit, reduce it to a single digit. And I'm like, but why put all the 78 in there then? And as I kept reading these and seeing where they fell, that's when I realized the two of them are interconnected. And you cannot disconnect that. And it's such a gift to see what they put in their book and how they did that. So then I became a student, not just of numerology, but of tarot. So that's when I realized I needed to combine them both because they're inextricably combined. And then, like I was sharing with you, that's what gives me more insight when I do a chart for someone and you'll say, like, what year am I going through? What am I in? And the energy of, for example, the 18, the moon, is much different than a 27, which is our Ace of Wands, which is much different from the 36. And they're all 9 energies, but they all have very different specific tasks in the 9. And when you see that, you're like, oh, wow, I just opened up a whole world. My mind exploded. And that's been what I've been doing for the last more than 20 years with my numerology, because I have the greatest respect for these other disciplines and the other people who do it. And I'm a fan of some of the other YouTube channels of the ladies who throw the cards. I haven't seen many men do the tarot, but I would love that too. And I remember when I was younger, I went to a psychic and she had a regular deck and she took out some of the cards, but she could just nail what was going on. So we all have our gift. It's all for each one of us. It's important for each one of us to have that opportunity to be able to share it. And this is mine. And so I realized, oh, this is what has to happen next in numerology. So that's why my book is important. And clearly needing to rewrite the first part, that's happening next, to represent the double digits. And we don't break things down to a single digit. You're losing so much specific information that's very helpful. So that's where I'm at with that. That's so.
Tell me something. When the word gematria, what does that word mean in your experience with numbers? Gematria is another way. The person that I met that introduced me to beautiful Barbara. As I told you, he was doing curly and photography, and he asked to do my numbers. I gave him my name and my birth date, and he gave me what he called a personal vibration code.
Wow.
And it
That's
was a series of numbers that represented my soul, personality, career, destiny, and the other was, I think, the overall essence of person. But
I'm
gematria, what does that name mean in your experience with numbers?
well, I am doing the numerology of the word gematria right now, so to speak. Let's see, 7, there's 11. Oh, plus 11, 22, 8. Wow, I think that's beautiful and a powerful source, and I believe that he is right on. And I'm saying that because I just did the numerology of the word gematria, and in the heart, I get the 16, which is the tower, which is sudden illumination, sudden awareness of a spiritual nature, and like receiving downloads, instantaneous downloads of massive amounts of information. Literally, the tower has lightning that strikes, so it's a sudden awareness, and that's at the heart of it. Like receiving information that is helpful, not necessarily easy, but absolutely powerful and divine. And this in gematria, the word is sacred, and it's very old and ancient, and it's as far back as tarot and all those things. We probably don't know when that started either. It's just always been a gift humanity has had. The outer personality number for gematria adds up to a 22. That's the Fool. That's a master number. So clearly it's something that when this person you saw had mastered this skill and knew what he was doing. And by mastering a skill, that's again another way of saying received the initiations well and learned first from himself. And then the gift that he gets, like the 369, it's first personal, and then it's community, and then it's humanitarian. And the 22 says, as a master number, I go through all of that, the 3, 6, and the 9. And then it adds up to the 38, which is our Queen of Cups, which says helping to heal on an emotional level. And that's powerful. And so I believe what he did was right on. My method's totally different, and I value mine and I value his. And I think he was absolutely right on. And I love people like that. I go to people like that too. It's I don't just stick with what I do is what I stick with professionally, but I receive the gifts that other people have as well. That just makes things much more beautiful. He was right on. He was right on. And I have done your chart, and you absolutely, Louis, have several master numbers, several. And I don't have it in front of me at the moment, but I do remember, yes, you have. And when I say several master numbers, it means a couple things. One is you are ready. And the other is the initiations you know you will receive. They are not easy. They are very intense, but you are ready, willing, and able. And because you said yes and decided to be born, you uplift the rest of humanity. And that's what you give to the rest of us because you agreed to that. So I thank you for taking on all of that, Louis. And that's a beautiful gift. That's a beautiful gift. And like I said, it is not easy to share who we really are, or the coming down and being born, knowing the experiences that await us. Some of them are pretty powerful. So, and you were like, I'm ready, let's do this. And that just brings massive light. What you're doing, again, back to the Lord's Prayer, the part about as above, so below. As above seems pretty easy from what I've heard people say, talking about their NDEs. It seems pretty easy on the other side, beautiful and loving. The challenge is the as below part. When you're like, I receive this and I have this wisdom and I'm ready to go down and share it. Well, wait a minute. It's just not quite that simple, such as all of the disciples of Jesus after the ascension of Jesus. Apparently, that's my cat, Inky. He loves to be a part of this too. Hi, honey. And after the ascension of Jesus, this is what I had heard, and I used to talk with Mommy Barbara about this, that there was, and I could be totally corrected if I'm wrong, but there was an initiation for each of them in many different ways. For some, it was like health issues or mental health issues or financial issues or being persecuted or whatever it was. These were all masters in the making. And then after they go through that, then they're ready to be teachers. So that's why when I see a chart like yours with several of these beautiful places where you said, Laz Rumi said, you know, the wound is where the light comes in. You're like, give me more. I'm ready. And so with you and your guide before you were born, planning this lifetime, he's like, are you sure you want to do one more? You're like, yeah, put it in there. But you were ready, Louis, and that just you're bringing light. You are bringing light, and that is powerful and healing. And it also says you chose some massively challenging scenarios. You had to. That was just your initiation into your own Christhood, and then you share that with us. So that's what you've got going on with all of those.
Well, you know, it's so phenomenal. I recall different moments in time where these dawnings of inner knowingness just flooded into me. And sometimes, you know, you get chills all over. Sometimes you just weep from humility. And it's humbling, but yet at the same time, it gives you a force that you can levitate, you can just rise above. But there is a journey through, like you said earlier, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. And you say, what was Rumi's statement was, it's through the wound that we...
Yes, the wound is where the light enters.
The wound is where the light enters.
That's Rumi.
You know, I remember I met a gentleman. I was living in Tucson, Arizona, and I was on the corner of 4th Avenue and 7th Street in Tucson. I had my little place where my band rehearsed in the basement, and I had a little store on the main floor, and I lived upstairs. And these guys knocked on my door. And I opened the door, and one guy says to me, "Oh, you're the bringer of light." I mean, I didn't know this guy. And
He was right.
it's funny, but those moments in time when like that comes back to my mind now. The gentleman, Joshua Ellisque, was a filmmaker. And I imagine he's making films out there somewhere today, but he had developed an animation device where he had a camera that went along a little trail, like a train that was elevated above what he was taking photos of, would carry the camera. And it was this interesting animation technique. He happened to be a German gentleman. And sometimes I have to say the German mentality is really, really fine-tuned. When they want to make something really work excessively well, extremely well, they know how to do it. German technology, whether it's cars or recording instruments, microphones. You go to Italy and you see this style in the Italian way. Like cultures have something about them that just gives them an edge in certain realms of experience. But this guy, Joshua Ellisque, was kind of a genius filmmaker that had these ideas for doing things. But I meet these guys randomly, and the guy says, "You're a bringer of light." And you know, I've had different moments where light has been, like, I have a song now I'm mixing called "Love Is Light." It's a song I recorded some years ago, but I'm working on it again now. But it's a powerful thing to know that you have, you know, my parents decided to have a child, and I happen to be the child that they had, and they decided to give me a name. And you know, November 2nd is Day of the Dead in the Hispanic culture. November 2nd is Day of the Dead,
and it adds up to 13, death and transformation.
Well, you know, it's a funny thing. Like, you know, you say, "What day were you born?" "I'm born on the Day of the Dead." But I've had this yearning for. I've ended up being in Mexico during that time, and I had always thought about it, and it manifested for me. I spent about 4 years in Mexico traveling and doing sound therapy, and but I was there, and I would get to go to these ceremonies. And the tradition in Mexico, what they do is the family members go to the grave sites of their loved ones, and they have food and music, and they celebrate. And it's like a paying homage to their beloved ones, but at the same time, ushering them or saying to them, you're still with us and we still love you and we honor your presence. Like there's a movie, a Disney movie, is it, I think Coco? Have you seen
Oh, I
that
saw
movie?
that. I loved it.
That is
I
all on
loved
the
it.
Day of the Dead.
That was absolutely beautiful.
And
And
Mexico, you see the costumes and the characters and the skull, the chocolate skulls and the crystal skulls that they use, all this fanfare around death and dying, but it's not a dark, foreboding moment.
no,
It's this joyous understanding that the ones that have come before us are still with us.
as it should be. And I know that, like with Mommy Barbara, she passed, and of course I cry. And for some people, though, they don't cry; they consider it a celebration. But either way, we get to honor however that happens. And
Mhm.
I love that that you pointed out to me that November 2 is the Day of the Dead. And it's also a 13, Louis, which means death and transformation at the same time. That's hysterical because the Day of the Dead, literally, like in the cartoon Coco, I loved that. They were honoring all of the people who had gone before them. And then
Yes.
also, big Disney fan here, Mulan. I saw that one, and in Mulan, the dragon would assist Mulan on her journey, and she would go to the room where all her elders would be with her, watching over her, taking
Right,
this journey.
right.
Yes, and I remember, I forget what work it was done, but it was some type of healing work I was having done, and I believe I was asked about past generations. It was probably shamanic work, and I was like, well, how does that, before I was educated on this, well, how does that have anything to do with why I'm here now? Boy, little did I know, Louis.
Yes.
All of this, yes, we have all of our past family members watching over us, and whenever we do anything healing for ourselves, they're affected, and it improves their connection. And I can literally, ever since that moment, going, well, what does that have to do with me, and and I never really knew my biological father much at all, and so I, could care less at that in that frame of mind, what type of person he was or his energy, until I saw the shaman. She lays this down and she goes, okay, it's on your father's side, here's your challenge. I'm like, how could that be? I barely even knew the man. but but
Mhm.
it was true. And then we literally are very precise, I believe, choosing our parents, choosing our challenges. And then we like to, on that family line, we often like to come back down into the same family line. Like, I started something, let me finish it. So I'll
Right.
be, I'll be the grandparent, and then I'll be the grandchild, and to help bring the healing. And um, I had a wonderful opportunity when I was with my husband, and there was a lot of really dark energy coming from him, and I was in my usual pattern of shutting down. And my daughter Audrey said, "Mom, you told him everything you don't love. Now you have to go and tell him what you do love." And I literally felt like I was 3 years old, Louis. My throat closed up, and I'm like, "Oh!" But part of me knew she was right. And then I felt, generations back, all the women in my family, the challenges they had trying to make a loving connection on a romantic level or with a soulmate. And as I took steps forward to tell my then husband all the things I loved about him, I had an explosion in my brain of, wow, we've never done this before. We've always been angry, hurtful, and moved on. And so that, when I went in and said, here's what I really love about you. And at first it was hard because my voice would barely speak because I'm like a little 3-year-old. But I did, and it shifted the entire, I could feel how, like, on that level of the relatives watching over me going, wow, finally we have someone who can break a negative pattern when it comes to these relationships. So what you're saying in the Day of the Dead, that all relates back because boy, I was ignorant about that until I got my education.
We know someone else comes to mind that we should do numerology on it. You know Joseph Campbell's work, right? The mythology expert.
Wow, I've heard the name and now I have to now I have to put him on my list too, but I've definitely heard his name. I'm going to put Joseph
Yeah,
Campbell.
Joseph Campbell, many people believe he could be seen as the world's most phenomenal expert on mythologies.
Oh, you know what? I'm excited about that because I see the tarot archetypes also as the same as some people see the mythology, the Greek mythology or the Roman mythology. So there's a lot of that we kind of play out here as well. So I'm excited to make that connection.
What's interesting about he studied he did a very in-depth study of world cultures and saw the similarities in divergent cultures sharing the same aspects and certain symbols, certain practices, and a certain general theme, you might say, to the story. Like if every culture has a story of creation, like you might say every family has a family history. And if you're going to sit down with the young ones in your family lineage and say, well, this is where your great grandmother and grandfather came from, and if you go down the lineage and you say, and then your dad and I, your mom and I had you, and now you're going to probably someday have children, and your lineage will be a part of this family tree. Well, what this represents, I heard it recently termed this way, as like a soul cluster, clusters of souls that tend to be together in different time frames and different lifelines and lifetimes.
I've heard that too. I really like that.
And repeating experiences. There's a great book called Dweller on Two Planets. And it's a story of a gentleman who was always in his lifetimes, he was working as a miner or working with minerals and working in the field of geology, minerals and stones and gold and, digging in the earth. And it was every lifetime, he was always involved in that. And there were people that he was involved with in different lifetimes. And the way the book is written, it shows that he had the same people coming into different lifelines and lifetimes. And he was oftentimes at a place where he'd be just about to discover this beautiful vein of whatever he was looking for, and he would make a decision that would send him off in another direction. And there was usually a person that came into his life just at the time he was getting ready to make this choice, and they would have the choice he would make wasn't always the best choice to make, but it was a choice that put his soul in a process of getting experience.
Yes.
And yet he had been having this experience over and over and over again with the same people. So it's almost as if we can learn enough about who we are and why we're here, and notice that who we are and why we're here, there's a lot of other who's and whys with us.
It's absolutely correct. It's what you were just saying reminds me of the sacred contract. And I love that. I don't know where I heard that, but soul cluster. I love that phrase because I do believe that we do have specific ties, karmic, loving, positive, negative, with certain souls. And I believe we get excited on the other side when we have a chance to all come together again to play out our energies with each other. But ideally, this next time around, ideally, we make progress. Ideally, we have self-awareness so that we can make slightly different changes. So instead of staying stuck in the negative, which, is human, we all do, but maybe during a particular moment, we might choose something slightly loving and completely alter that, or choose forgiveness, or say, wait a minute, this is a cycle. How do I get off of this?
Right.
Where can I forgive? Like Mommy Barbara. Okay, it's time for love, forgiveness, and gratitude. Where am I lacking that, or where can I add this now? That's hard, and that's the joy that we have on the other side when we're like, I finally get to come back and we get to replay whatever it is we had. And this time I'm hoping that I bring more love into this, or this time I'm hoping I get to bring forgiveness. Yes, I love how you put that.
Well,
Oh,
you
and
know,
by the way,
Joseph Campbell's message to us was to understand how important it is for us at this time to create new mythologies. Because the hero's journey, for instance, there are certain stereotypical things that happen in a heroic journey. There's the leaving your home and the place where you're familiar with, and you venture off into who knows where. And oftentimes there's in certain stories, there's always a slaying of a dragon or the slaying of some unknown questionable thing in the dark side of the forest or the dark side of the moon or some faraway galaxy. We've heard that there's something out there, but none of our people have ever gone and to see, what's really there, So, but the writing of like the writing of our story of creation and the creation of new mythologies is something that we are challenged with at this time. We don't have to live the same story and repeat the same scenarios. We have choices to make, and it's, I think, profound if you see that your name, your birth date, have something to say about who you are and why you're here. You can say, well, you know what, this isn't just some roll of the dice. There's something going on here, and we must honor that and see what role we are meant to play in this evolution.
that's absolutely why I get excited every time I do a chart, because I see the divinity in all the numbers and in the individuals in all of us while I'm doing it. And I'm like, how can one, and this is me thinking about God, how can one divine creative source keep track of all of us and do all this math for all these charts and make sure, like, whatever my spiritual path is, and the same time whenever it is you're born and we connect, and for some reason there's a gift there, and there's always some gift there. How do you do this with billions of people? So I'm thinking God is a brilliant mathematician myself. um, there,
Oh.
there's no way you can make a mistake with math. It's a wholly scientific discipline. And I remember this interesting, I took a class in algebra. When I was in high school, I got an F and a D minus. So later I went back and somehow I was like, oh, the lights are on. I totally finally get like algebra, right? And the teacher had this one word problem, which I hated. But this one got me because the word problem was the Loch Ness monster lives in a lake and it's murky and it's dark. And you go down deeper and deeper and deeper. How much light is in there? Well, the fascinating thing that got me so excited was the mathematical equation to figure this out. There was a decimal point. There was 0.0000, and then there might be 2. So 0.0002. But the deeper you got, I realized you could never, ever extinguish the light, no matter how dark it got. And the moment I saw that, my whole body was just like tingling. I'm like, this is why I love numerology. That math just proved it. No matter how dark things get, you never extinguish the light, period. God is everywhere. And my mind was like, whoa, yay. I didn't like the teacher, but I appreciated the lesson.
Oh. Well, when we look at these people, we've looked at William Blake. I think we looked at the word God. We looked at Jesus, Lord Jesus Christ. Did
Yes.
we go through, we looked at Madame Blavatsky.
Yes. Yes, we did. Oh,
And
and also I have my cards if there's any political or any question you want, and I could throw the cards and see what shows up too. Personal, political, or whatever.
okay. Now, in looking at people that might be in the political arena as we speak, and looking at just their name and their birth date in comparison to what the cards might present, I'm curious if you look at people that are playing very predominant roles in the world, in world politics right now, what does their number and birth date say compared to, because a lot of people, a lot of the tarot card readers that I'm following, there's a lot of readings going on about a certain number of the same people because they're pivotal players in the world of politics right now. And I was wondering if you were to look at just their name and birth date, would there be a coinciding a relationship between how they look just by name and birth date and how an actual tarot card reading might come out for them?
Well, that'd be fun to do. So absolutely. And in these, in everyone's chart, because we're all born and we all have a name, we have the ability for our own personal enlightenment and our to increase that and to also increase our own personal hell. And we all and so no matter how evil or powerfully good a person is, that's choice. And we come into the world with the opportunity to go in either direction. And so that shows up like each individual number has its positive aspects and its negative aspects. And with world leaders, they have that opportunity, that chance, that initiation, so to speak, of that opportunity to be tested. And some of them flying colors and others not so much. And that's how it is with all of us individually. And just so happens they're affecting a whole lot more people on a much larger scale globally. So right. That's why there's an intensity with these people who become prominent in their roles, because like if I make a mistake, who am I hurting in my little microcosm? Well, that gets so much more intensified if I'm in charge of a country or a city or whatever it is. It just makes it even that much more pronounced. So I go into it trying to release judgment, even if it's an evil individual who I would do some like throw cards for or do numbers for, because I literally have had this prayer myself to God, where I tell God, if I'm in a position where I'm influencing someone or sharing with them, please let it be you coming through. And if I try to step in with my ego, shut me down or turn off my voice, because that's a huge responsibility. And that's something that's sacred and powerful. And I cannot judge even someone who's turned evil. Like, I'm sure there have been lessons I haven't always, appreciated the choices I've made. And so I can only ask for, work on my own forgiveness. And when that test comes around again, try to be stronger, because I can see how easy it is as a human, like even a small thing, to be tempted. And then if you have a world leader or someone who has fame, and I don't wish fame on people, but people who are famous and we get to know every detail of their life, that's a huge burden to have. So in that respect, I try to, in fact, this is as a court reporter, this is where all those years there, this has really helped me, because I would see an entire scenario played out, sometimes in a murder or a rape case, and I would see these people brought together and I didn't know why. And I'm like, what role would I play, and would I make different decisions? How could I have, been in their shoes and made a different choice? Could I don't know that I could. So I had to really learn to stop judging all the time. And that's so, like I said, even if I do a chart for someone who's turned totally dark, I do not need to add my judgment to them, but I just want to see objectively, when I'm laying that out. So that's literally, I got to see that play out over and over, and sat through many murder trials or some very dark people or people fighting each other, and some really crazy scenarios. And I used to just be like, well, in my mind, I said, God, somehow you put these people together, the victim and the perpetrator. And so I want to surround this whole scenario with light, and particularly myself, because I don't want to start judging the person I feel has done an evil, because this person who has done an evil is initiating this victim who will one day say, I'm no longer a victim. why did this victim choose that perpetrator? I don't know. And I can't judge that. So I can't judge the evil either. And that's really hard to do, Louis. But
Yes,
that's the frame of mind I like to take on. So what you said, that's why I respond in that way. So yeah, I can do anyone's name, birth date, and also do tarot. But from the perspective of I can't judge, and I can see that they're playing a role, and maybe they did turn purely evil, and I know there is that going on here. So when I do that, I like to cleanse myself mentally.
I understand. And it's very profound, your experience as a court stenographer, to be in a setting like that and to see that your heart and your mind have to be in a place of total openness to accepting the fact that these people are here for a reason. It may not be something you understand. Maybe the judge and the jury may not even understand. But if the judge and the jury at least say to themselves, I don't really know what brought them here, but let me be open-hearted and open-minded enough to let their story share itself with us. Because it's quite a profound thing to be in a court where a judgment is going to be made that you did this to this person. And I find that I think in today's world, the idea of the victim and the perpetrator is something that we have to adjust. There may be, like in soul contracts, there may be a dynamic of relationship there that doesn't make this dark, shadowy, demonic being any less valuable than the innocent, brilliant, illuminated one. You know, I mean,
Exactly. Exactly. And that's a strange thought to have, and it takes courage and bravery to be able to even question and to be able to let go of all that judgment, because what you said, it reminds me, and I might have shared this before, so stop me if I have, but I remember having a dream, and it didn't feel like a dream. It was a classroom setting, and there was a teacher, and he was sitting at a TV, and I was one of the students, and there were like about 9 of us sitting around the TV, and he was showing us a film, and it was about war. And in this film, during war, there were soldiers, and sometimes the soldiers would go out and capture other soldiers of war, and sometimes the soldier would have to do the torturing, and sometimes the soldier would have to be tortured. And the teacher said, once you have played every role, then you have graduated.
Oh,
And I'm like,
that's
okay,
that's really deep.
so I have to be the one doing these horrible, awful things. And here I'm trying to judge, as a human. Yeah, so it was the hardest time I had at work was in children's court. That just was the hardest. That was like, yeah, I would go home and take a shower.
Well, can we do Kahlil Gibran?
Yes.
Have you
Yes.
worked on those numbers?
Hold on, K-A, spell that for me, the spelling you have.
It's Kahlil
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Gibran.
R-A-N. Okay, hold
Now, I
on.
believe he had a much longer name, but he's known around the world as Kahlil Gibran.
Got it. This is the
Gibran.
no problem. 9 and 5. So in Kahlil, the vowels, the A and the I, that adds up to 10, which is the Wheel of Fortune. He wanted to be a source of inspiration for others, to say that there is a better way. There is a way that brings more light instead. It's like when I see the 10 in the heart number, he saw suffering and said, there can be a way that doesn't involve so much pain. And that was his message with the 10, the Wheel of Fortune. It says a shift for the better. So in other words, he wanted to help us shift our consciousness. And in doing so, we do not need to continue that cycle of the pain and the suffering over and over. And then, oh my gosh. So Kahlil and Gibran, Kahlil has an A and an I. Gibran has an I and an A. So he's got 2 10s, 10 plus 10. So he was a leader. First of all, the 1 is the leader, and the 0 is the divine source, the divine guidance and protection from God. So he knew before he was born that he would take this on. And when we take things on, we've already gone through it. So he had already gone through all of the issues and the suffering he saw other people go through. So that happens in many lifetimes, many, many lifetimes. And so his awareness is what he wanted to share with us to help awaken others so that that cycle could be stopped and shifted to a new way of thinking. So he had a way of looking at things that no one else had seen before, and that was brave. And he was very brave. He had no issues with fear. He was who he was, and he knew exactly that source and where it came from. And then when I add that up, we get the number 20. So judgment, the number 20, it was his heart number, and judgment literally shows in the tarot, it shows coffins, and they're opened up, and people who were dead or had a heaviness, they're now brought back to life, and they're enjoying the sun. So it literally changes the things that were dead or heavy or hard and shifts them to their purpose of why did they go through that? Here's the reason. So he didn't, basically, with what the people were going through, he said, there's something loving that if you just connect with that whatever it is you're here to awaken to, there's that love that's available to you too. That's it. And the 20 is a soft, gentle number. So he's got the two tens, which are both strong and powerful and independent. And he used his words in the most eloquent ways possible. And he would move people, and they would help to connect to their heart chakra and their heart center in ways that other people couldn't. And he was needed for his time. And then let me go to his outer personality number. That's 10. Oh, wow. So he would perform miracles. So what he said, because the consonants in Kahlil add up to 16, which is the tower. And the tower says suddening awareness, suddening awakenings, much as Christ would look into someone's eyes, or if he would touch you, there would be an intense connection, or he would just be in your presence, or within miles of you, and you just felt it. There is that energy that Kahlil Gibran would always channel and always have with them. The 16 would literally, it felt like being shaken to your core to be around, like much like with Christ, but Kahlil Gibran, the things he would say and the loving way he would present them, the 16 is almost like pulling the rug out from under your feet and going, whoa, the foundation that I previously had no longer works. And it gets to be replaced. The 16 says, I yank away suddenly your old thoughts and belief systems. It's a sudden, intense one to say, let's replace it with something that does have true value, and that is your own spirit. And that's the 7 energy of that. And then with Gibran, here we have 9, 9, 18. He was protected. Wow, he was protected. I mean, the consonants in Gibran add up to 23, our King of Wands. He had lots of traveling to do, lots of people to connect with, but there's water, there's an element of protection. So the king is always very protected wherever he goes because he made a lot of enemies. And anytime someone is brave enough to stand in their truth and share it, there are a lot of enemies. So I'm pretty sure they wanted him dead sooner than he was, but they couldn't quite get to him somehow. It didn't quite work out. The same as with Jesus. So you get a lot of enemies when you're brave enough to be who you truly are. But that didn't stop him one bit. He didn't even think about that. He didn't have to. Fear was not part of his language. He had confidence, and he knew exactly that he was a channel for this message that he brought. And now I want to add that up too. So we have 20, and then we have 3. So his outer personality number, I love this. It's the Knight of Cups, the number 39. Literally, his personality number, he was always had a very relaxed energy. It was always very loving, very calm. And with our Knight, it shows the Knight is holding a cup and holding it out to share with others. And it's filled with water, which is emotions, but the peaceful, loving ones. So he mastered his emotions, and he's like, this, what I've done, you can do too, and let me share. And he would share his knowledge with other people, and they loved being around him. He brought up the light. So you're talking about the 3, 6, 9. Well, 39 is 2 of those. So love of self and love of humanity. And he taught people that. And then the destiny numbers, let's see, 56 and 33. So Gibran adds up to a 33, the master number. He would fight and do battle. And so, as you know, my dear master friend, the 33, there are battles that he would fight, and he had no problems. He could go toe to toe with people, but he never went into battle in any other frame of mind other than love. That was his like Archangel Michael has his shield. His shield was love, and no one can beat that. So when there's love, you join it. And if you're not joining it, you can't get through it. There's no, if you have any negative intention, it does not have any effect whatsoever. So he welcomed this clearly. And the 33 says he was making things better for people who were stuck. So he saw a particular population or group didn't have representation, who didn't have access to inspiration or self-love, and he particularly chose those people, the vulnerable. Well, that got him all his enemies, and he didn't care, and they couldn't do a thing about it. So then let's go to add this up. Oh yeah, Kahlil adds up to 26. He loved his travels. The 26 says our page of wands, and our page of wands he loved to learn. He, as much as he knew, he would always make you feel like you were teaching him something too. Because of the 26, the page of wands says, I receive this education and it helps me in my travels. So he literally loved to interact with people. He would travel from town to town, gathering these experiences, these stories. He loved, more than anything, he loved the story. So he would share his, and he would listen to you, and he would be honored that you would share. And that was the gift, the exchange. And it never had anything to do with money. It was always from the heart. And the 26, people would welcome him in their homes. I don't know how he got around, or he didn't need money. It just came to him, clearly. And then when we add that up, then we get 59. Our 5 of swords. Oh my God. He literally had, like Archangel Michael, a figurative sword. And because his destiny number was the 59, and the 5 says man. So there's the 5-pointed star says man, and man overcoming himself. And the 9 says through the wisdom we gain. And 59 is literally our 5 of swords with the knife cutting through. And he literally said, because the 59 in tarot says, you're fighting a battle. No one wins. Nobody wins. So put down your sword and receive the love that you have in front of you. So he taught people, and he literally, like I said, offended a lot of people, and it didn't matter to him one bit. So the 59 was literally clearing out the air, clearing the space, and allowing people that place for love and forgiveness. That's what he had to teach. But wait, you gave me his birthday too. So 1/6/1883, is that his birthday?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. 1/6 plus 1883. His first pinnacle was a 7. He was born receiving all this knowledge, and he was born protected, and almost like Jesus Christ and Lord Jesus Christ with the 7 as the karma. He knew his path was a spiritual one. It wasn't a physical labor, or, we all have different ones. His was definitely to learn. And the first pinnacle, he wanted to be protected while he received information. Deeply emotional time, deeply. And then he knew he would be sharing and teaching. And then we have 8 plus 9. And 9 and 18 plus 21 equals 8. So 7, 8, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. He has an Ace of Wands for his spiritual path number. Ace of Wands is beautiful. It literally shows, it's like the tree of life. And each leaf that falls is divine inspiration from God. He was completely linked up. So the moment he was born, he had that link to his higher self, as all babies do. He just never forgot that. At a certain level, we don't require the veil of forgetfulness because we've already done our forgiveness and all that work. So that veil didn't really, no, he was just busy writing. In fact, as a child, he was busy with his books, writing all this stuff down, watching and observing, and then he shared that with others. that was his job. That was his prophecy. And it came to him. He just took dictation. Yeah, he was so good with words, like an orator or a writer or speaker. Just to be around him would be totally uplifting.
Well, it's said that he's the single most important influence on Arabic poetry and literature during the first half of the 20th century.
Wow.
And it says, some people say that he was a painter as well. His paintings expressed his personal vision, incorporating spiritual and mythological symbolism. But then overall, it's been said that a lady named Alice Raphael, recognizing him as a painter, whose work owed more to the findings of Da Vinci than it did to any modern insurgent. His prodigious body of work has been described as an artistic legacy to people of all nations. So Kahlil's book, The Prophet, is still being published, and some people believe it's one of the most important books ever written. It's really in the upper echelon of creative expressions. His creative spirit expressed things in an incomparable fashion. And so, yes, you have taken his name and his birth date and defined his gift to creation.
It's amazing. The 27 is very artistic, very poetic. I mean, anything with the energy, he would just literally, energy would come through him and he would utilize it in its most inspirational, beautiful way, whether it be words or art. And he had access to that. He'd studied this for many, many lifetimes. He was brilliant at it.
Well, that's it for Here and Now. But until we meet again, this has been Louis-Virie Blanche thanking you for listening to Conversations with Elders on Glastonbury Radio 432. Bless you.
Quantum physics in the kitchen sink, the energy that follows the thoughts you think. Quantum physics and the cosmic sea, laws of nature too heavy for me. It's too cosmic, much too cosmic for me.